My name's Louise Towler. I run two businesses. I started a digital marketing agency over a decade ago, and we, about 3 years ago, had a really good idea for a piece of software called Canopy, and it will measure the carbon footprint of your WordPress website. So we bootstrapped it through the agency, and now that has turned into a second business, which we're currently finalising our sort of prototype MVP on right now. We had some funding from Innovate UK. I was fortunate enough to be one of their Women in Innovation Award winners a couple of years ago, and that gave us the funding to build out the initial sort of very, very rough prototype. We'd had various sources of funding from third-party organisations, local university helped us out, the local growth hub also funded it through my existing successful business. But what we didn't have was funding for business stuff relating to what we were doing. All the funding that we had was very clearly demarked out for very particular things. When you get grants from people like Innovate UK, they're really strict on what you can spend the money on. I'd been talking to my Innovate UK Edge advisor about how on earth we were going to fund the thing once the grants had run out. I think it must have been a LinkedIn post I saw that just connected me up. I subscribed initially to the newsletter. I thought, well, it's interesting just to hear another perspective from people who aren't part of a sort of government organisation, maybe people a little bit more at the sharper end of it. And it just seemed like a good fit, and it was online and I could fit it around my diary. After I graduated from the alternative funding school, I definitely had a lot more confidence in how to speak to an investor. It actually worked out that the investment that we got, we did the pitch before the alternative funding school started, but whilst it was literally happening from week to week, we were talking to our investor and negotiating terms and how much equity they would get. The alternative funding school, there was one or two sessions where I was literally like almost mind blown by the fact that there were things in there that I could go and immediately implement, so that when I was talking to our investor, I knew exactly what I was getting myself into, but also knew what questions to ask, so the investor realised I knew what I was doing. And there were one or two questions and one or two things that I also spoke to our solicitors about, who were drawing up all the legal documents based on information I learned from the alternative funding school that otherwise I just wouldn't have known. So it's not just about the pitch, it was actually what to do after the pitch. Just because someone says yes doesn't mean in 2 or 3 months' time they're going to sign those documents. You've got to get the process right and make sure it's fair on all sides. Having that plan, you may not know how you're going to get there in 5 or 7 years' time, but having that plan really helps you make the decisions along the way. It made me feel empowered and gave me confidence. Knowing what to do to make sure it was all done completely right. When we set it all up and I was paying the accountants and the lawyers and everything to do everything, we were setting it up in a way so that it was an investable company for a UK investor. We wanted the tax breaks for their investment as well. So there was all sorts of other bits and pieces we were doing. You can't cut corners when you've got an investor, because what you don't want is any legal jeopardy. You don't want the investment being spent on legal issues. You want it to be spent on building out the product and the marketing and the engineering and all the other exciting things. I would definitely advise them to sign up for something like the Alternative Funding School and just get the background to what makes you investable. I would make sure they've got a good lawyer and a good accountant who understands startups. The lawyer I used, she would have been quite happy for me to pay in instalments if cash flow was a problem. Small town accountant and lawyer won't necessarily understand a startup. In terms of the pitch, I would go in and be really authentic about it. Don't be smoke and mirrors, because they'll see through it in an instant, and probably what they're investing in is you, more than what you've done so far. You might have this amazing idea, but actually what they're investing is your ability to get it over the line. The final 10% is always the hardest. I get up every morning and I love going to work. If you don't enjoy it, that will come across as well to the investor. It's not about the money, it's about the opportunities you're giving to do whatever it is you're doing, make the world better.